Dear Taurus, it's time. July is beginning the month when the planet Uranus leaves your sign. Uranus has been in your sign for the past 7 years, starting from 2018. Uranus is the planet of revolution, the planet that gives you independence, rebelliousness, and at times you literally couldn't control your own character, because Uranus at some point says, I'm not going to play by anyone else's rules. I'll just tell everyone to go take a hike, because things aren't going my way. So, over the past 8 years, you've really experienced this rebellious streak within yourself. In some ways, this worked out really well for you. You got rid of unnecessary freeloaders and focused your life more on your career, on success, and maybe on some material goals. But at the same time, Uranus doesn't let you find any real stability or solid ground, as if your life is constantly jumping from one situation to another. Uranus could probably be described as one of the main planets that manifests in life like, reality transurfing. It's like when you jump from one reality to another, you set an intention, like, I need to get over there. And life literally tosses you around, or it's like some kind of teleportation. There's a great Uranian movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think that's the name. And in it, there's this concept that life is like a trajectory of many realities, and you can just jump from one reality to another with a snap of your fingers. And it's such a beautiful esoteric image that life can actually be changed with just a snap of your fingers. And that's exactly a Uranian concept. The upside is when you do this consciously, when you intentionally change the realities around you. But the downside is that sometimes Uranus does this against your own understanding or will. You'd really like, and Taurus people especially would love, a calm, stable, normal life, where you have solid ground under your feet. But Uranus is like a volcano. One moment it throws me into one reality, then into another, and I can't settle anywhere. Can't just live peacefully on my warm, cozy couch. And over the last 8 years, you could have been seriously shaken up. So basically, Uranus could often be described as an earthquake. And for the past 8 years, you've been living as if you're on this volcano. Sometimes it shakes, sometimes it erupts, sometimes something else happens, or even your own personality shows itself in such a way that you end up butting heads with one person or another. And it feels like I just couldn't have done it any other way. I honestly don't even know why. Just because. And Taurus is a sign that is probably the most stable of all, where everything happens steadily and methodically. But for the past 8 years, what kind of stability could there possibly be? I've been shaken up and turned inside out. You could lose weight over these 10 years from all the nerves and chaos Uranus has stirred up. And now it's leaving your sign. Uranus is moving into Gemini. For Geminis, Uranus is basically prescribed as the main remedy. Uranus is like manna from heaven for Geminis. They thrive with Uranus. But for you, as a stable sign, over the past years, your own independence and rebellious spirit might have already reached their limit in some places. I don't want this Uranus anymore. Let me go. Set me free, magic herb. I don't need any more of this unpredictability and rebellious independence. Uranus is originally the ruler of the sign Aquarius. And if you know Aquarians, they always have this slightly quirky mindset in the sense that they're constantly seeking unpredictability, surprises, and wonder in life. They need any kind of result, but preferably something different. Let's come up with something else. And for the past 8 years, this Aquarian lifestyle has belonged to Taurians. Uranus was moving through Taurus. And Aquarians who aren't really into all this craziness could, of course, allow themselves a bit of that wild, chaotic madness typical of Uranus, but at times, it definitely got exhausting. The point is that now it no longer affects you, and in some ways that's really good, and in some ways it's just great, finally. Now Uranus is moving into the sign of Gemini, a sign associated with information. Uranus in Gemini symbolizes a huge amount of learning, insights, and the ability to master this new digital era on a large scale, a time that's practically threatening all of us already, with artificial intelligence and all sorts of other things, when we can clearly see that our brains just can't keep up with the overwhelming amount of data from social networks, blogs, and all this information. How can we fit all of this in? The answer to that question is precisely Uranus in Gemini. This is exactly the tool that will allow our minds to tune into the age of Aquarius, to the era of breakthrough information that's pouring in from everywhere, but at the same time, to process it in the right, appropriate way, so that it doesn't cause an information overload when you just feel sick of all this information coming at you from every direction. And that's why, this July, Uranus will start offering you a new approach to learning, a new way of acquiring knowledge, a new method for organizing your life, for creating information structures that are clear, convenient, and useful. Not all that chaotic information mess that sometimes just makes you want to pull your hair out or desperately try to figure out what's going on. Also, Uranus in Taurus in Gemini over the next few months will make it easy for you to learn new programs, new methods like bookkeeping, reporting, or to master new areas in your profession. And you'll be able to do this effortlessly, without that heavy feeling of wondering how you're supposed to adapt to all of it. It'll feel more like, oh, it just kind of happens on its own. You might not even really understand how, but you figured it out. And it started working. And you mastered that program. And now you're doing things twice as fast as before, tasks that used to take you weeks or even months to figure out. That's why Uranus in Gemini makes it easier for us to learn, to pick up new professions, new knowledge, and new directions. We're going to experience all this in July, when July is supposed to be a time to relax. So what's up with that? Why all this learning? Why all this activity? There will be time to relax in July, too. So don't worry about that either. That's because Jupiter is currently in the sign of relaxation, the sign of taking it easy, Cancer. So in July, you'll get both. There will be moments when you feel truly inspired, when your eyes light up with excitement at the thought of learning something new. July is the perfect time for this when you're traveling somewhere in your mind. Your mind is literally exploding from all the new experiences, new knowledge, and new surroundings. This is because, in July, your ruling planet Venus is moving through Gemini, and Venus absolutely loves travel, loves adventure, loves to be inspired. And here, it's like this over there, it's like that read up on the history of the places you visit. That's why this is one of the very best times to wake up your mind, to really break out of some worn-out routine and old reality, and start discovering the world, opening your eyes to new adventures. Because your mind will absolutely eat up these adventures and be inspired by them. Hire yourself a guide for the day. A guide, a storyteller, someone who will fill your mind with a very important part of any journey this July. So don't overlook these kinds of informational services that not only immerse you in a new environment, but also give you a ton of interesting information about where and how you're traveling. But these are just some general outlines, thoughts for the upcoming July. Here in the video, I'll mention 5 key events. Well, these are kind of general events for all signs, for all Taurians, and they still might happen to you, or they might pass you by. And I have a link to a service for calculating based on your birth date, which you'll find below the video. It's called Probability Indexes, where you enter your date, and for each of the 5 key events I mention here, you'll get an index from 1 to 5 plus signs. The text and description will be the same, but what will be personalized for you is the number of plus signs, based on your birth date. I also have separate tools where you can create a full personal forecast based on your birth date, shown as charts and structures. And this is available in my private Telegram channel. You'll also find a link to it below the video. There, you can view forecasts for each day, almost down to every hour until the end of the year, and check or choose the right dates for the events you need. We've come up with a really convenient format there using charts, because sometimes there's just too much text, and it would be nice to simplify things. With the charts, it's like manna from heaven. Everything is right there in front of you, clear and easy to understand what's happening, where, which planet, and how it all sounds and is interpreted. We also have artificial intelligence in our private channel, which you can use to get answers to any question. There are also several educational posts every week to give you a basic understanding of astrology, so you know how to make a forecast, for example, about your Venus or the planet of happiness, Jupiter. In short, you can look into different situations. There's a ton of stuff, card science, alternative forecasting methods, and so on and so forth. A lot. At least give it a try, subscribe with an open heart. And you might really get into it, because it's a whole different level compared to the general forecasts you usually hear from me. I also want to mention that I literally just launched a WhatsApp channel about a month ago. There aren't many people there yet, but I'll be posting some exclusive comments just for WhatsApp as well. The thing is, it's not available for Russian phone numbers, but if your WhatsApp is registered to a foreign number, you can subscribe to the channel and use it to stay updated. Maybe that will be convenient for some of you. This is really just about keeping you informed. So, there's a lot going on. Let's go through all the events and details one by one. The first thing I want to talk about is from July 1st to July 5th. The first event. Here we have the black moon coming into play. And this is exactly that banana peel you might slip on, come to, and find yourself in a cast. Well, a cast is a cast. Alright, you fail, you came to. Then it turns out that there's something inside that cast. And the black moon, it can hide either treasures or a whole family in that cast. I don't know how you would even bandage yourself up in a cast, but the point is that the black moon is currently in the sign of Scorpio. In an emotional sign, a sensual sign, a sign connected to the people we care about and feel deeply for. And the black moon is a provocation in what we feel. The black moon in Scorpio is an obvious moment of jealousy, which sometimes gets blown out of proportion for no real reason. It's like something just clicks in your head, and suddenly you throw out this jealous accusation, just like that, out of nowhere. Also, the black moon in a water sign brings confusion. Should you trust or not? Is this person really close to you or not? Did she give herself to the right person or not? And then there's this feeling, who can you really trust? Doubt about intimacy, that's the tone of the black moon. And here, there are two things. First, these doubts, well, you really should be more careful and attentive. If someone shows up in your circle and claims to be close to you, the black moon might be signaling that this is just an emotional game, an emotional performance, and those feelings aren't actually real. That's the first possible scenario. There's a second scenario, where everything is fine with your loved ones, but something just clicks in your head, and the black moon invents some made-up emotional drama, jealousy, or complaint in your mind. And right here, from July 1st to July 5th, these kinds of jealous distortions or emotional distortions can really happen. So be careful, especially when it comes to making accusations against your loved ones and realizing that you might be blowing things way out of proportion for no real reason. For those with this on the ascendant, let me clarify, the black moon is most likely moving through your 7th house, and it's directly connected to the feeling of I don't trust emotions, I don't trust my partner's feelings. And this could be either distrust that I've worked up in my own head, or an actual reason not to trust. These two things are separated by two factors here. If your relationship started before the black moon entered the sign of Scorpio, basically, if your relationship has lasted more than 2 or 3 months, then most likely these are imagined grievances, jealous moments that you're blowing out of proportion and projecting onto your partner. But if your relationship begins during the period when the black moon is in Scorpio, let's say, roughly, these summer months, then from the very start there might be some kind of underlying issue or doubts in the relationship. In general, the classic scenario of the black moon moving through the 7th house is described as, I stop relying on partners. And the black moon in our horoscope symbolizes the place where things get stuck, where there's emptiness, where things don't move forward. So, when the black moon is in the 7th house, it means I don't really want to rely on partnership. I want to rely on myself. And while the black moon is moving through the 7th house, many people automatically and intuitively choose a way of living and behaving where, during this year, they want to rely first and foremost on themselves. I'm just fed up with all these emotions, partners, and everything else. There's this inner need to live for yourself, from the 1st house, where the white moon is currently passing through for you. And the black moon, it means that there are some setbacks happening in the 7th house. So, to hell with that 7th house, I don't really want to count on it too much. I'll live, kind of for myself or based on my own motives. If I need something done, I'll do it myself. That's how a lot of motivations sound under the black moon, and I hope this kind of advice will help you shift your focus and priorities in the right way. But again, here's another piece of advice. The black moon is not a reason to give up on your personal life, on partnerships, or on relying on your partner. If you know that the person next to you is truly a reliable person you can count on, then the black moon might play out either as your own doubts, like, we agreed on something here, but the partner couldn't follow through, or as real snags and problem areas with your partner. For example, your partner has always earned well, but now, under the influence of the black moon, he or she is going through some personal conflicts or difficulties, and suddenly this person becomes, well, almost a non-factor when it comes to relying on them. At the same time, it's not because of their actual abilities, but as if life has just turned out this way for them, so I can't fully count on my partner in certain situations. So, it's not always a reason to have an emotional outburst or make accusations. Sometimes there are real, objective circumstances that lead to me not being able to rely on my partner as fully as I used to. That's just a small nuance. But again, the black moon tends to manifest itself quite clearly, so all the situations I'm describing now might have already been noticeable as early as June. Since there's a lot of discussion about the black moon, both in groups and in the comments, you're probably seeing how it's playing out, so here it's just going to be especially pronounced during these first few days. The next key event is on July 10th. Here we have a full moon, right now, taking place in the sign of Capricorn. On the 7th, Uranus is directly involved. That very Uranus I talked about at length in the introduction moves into the sign of Gemini and leaves your sign. This is where the very theme of intellectual breakthrough begins, the one I discussed so much in the introduction. As Uranus moves into Gemini, it gives us the opportunity to access new information technologies and bring them into our lives in a simple, easy way, without blowing up ourselves or anyone else. And basically, the idea is that I start grabbing insights out of thin air. I have a ton of brilliant ideas. My head is full of new, original, and unusual things, and I feel like I can turn the world upside down. At the very least, the world inside my own head, my knowledge, my understanding. This really does happen, even without waiting for the full moon. It starts from the very beginning of July, but here, at the full moon on the 10th, it will be at its peak. It's as if I finally see that my life, in terms of knowledge, information, and learning, will never be the same. It's as if I'm getting some kind of green card or a ticket to a major educational conference that changes my way of thinking and my understanding of how I'm going to live with my own mind and my perception of the world around me. Of course, I realize this all sounds pretty abstract right now. Let's talk in more practical terms. This event is extremely important from a career perspective, primarily in terms of learning new methods for advancing your career. There's a strong sense of inner enthusiasm, a feeling that I can do anything. And that's largely because my eyes have been open to new tools for achieving my career goals. At the same time, your main planet, Venus, is in the sign of Gemini, and it is open to knowledge. Gemini is the main sign associated with learning and education. And in fact, throughout the entire month, your planet, your attention, your life's focus is centered on receiving new information and new experiences from life. Venus in Gemini can also be about travel, as well as a huge wave of learning and education that I'm experiencing right now. And the full moon itself is also connected to the earth element. And in the earth element, we also have Mars, which means we're working hard, organizing, systematizing, and bringing informational order to everything. So, there are good, strong, focused, and responsible people during the full moon, and there are people influenced by Mars and Virgo who are ready to work hard. And this feeling arises that a whole team is forming, an entire community, a whole system of life around me that A. is ready to work hard, B. has big ambitions, and C. possesses incredible educational potential to make all this happen, and to do it much faster than it ever happened in my life before. That's what this full moon is like. By the way, I actually covered it in the yearly forecasts. I'll probably leave links below to those key events from the yearly forecasts, so you can, revisit and analyze this topic in a bit more detail. All in all, it's a very powerful, important, and key full moon, connected to career and achievement. For Taurus ascendants, this full moon will most likely fall in the 10th house. It means that career comes above everything else. There's a lot of activity happening there, with a very strong influence from the 6th house of work, or there's a hard-working, efficient, and awesome team, as well as your Venus, which at some point in July will move into the 2nd house and start focusing all its attention on money, money, money. How can you earn it, and what informational opportunities are connected to money? Because Venus in Gemini is all about information, and while it's in the 2nd house, it's searching for financial opportunities in that information, in those communications, and in those trips. So, this is a super-duper event about money, which comes through new methods and a big, strong team. By the way, another important point is that, due to the strong influence of the past life node, an old team might get involved to work on these new projects. It could even be an invitation to return to an old business, but now to do it using some new methods. The next event is on July 14th to 15th. Well, I keep talking about work, and more work. And honestly, most of July is just buzzing for you with exciting ambitions, goals, and a fresh perspective on your profession and your potential achievements. So, actually, yes, I've mentioned a lot of professional trends, but in reality, you might even decide to start a renovation here. And there's this feeling that you have personal power, the strength to manage a big team, a large number of employees, and many processes. Everything is just buzzing and boiling with activity. But at some point, you need to take a break. It's exactly about these dates, rest and relaxation, on the 14th and 15th. This is the perfect time not to rush and maybe take a trip somewhere, maybe to a health resort or a guest house, someplace you can go with good company, relax, and just enjoy the fact that you're all together here today. In July, actually, we also have a very strong influence of these work energies that will push us to really get down to business, work hard, work. Whether it's renovations or something else. But there are also energies connected to relaxation. That's Jupiter in Cancer, and the Sun. These Piscean energies come into play when the Moon is in Pisces on the 14th and 15th. And this is the opportunity to alternate between intense, busy work and truly enjoyable, full-on relaxation. And here, on the 14th and 15th, Jupiter in Cancer really comes into its own, which means that being with these people will just sweep you away. Take a break, enjoy yourself, go to the country with some good company. That's it. No one works as efficiently as someone who knows how to relax. And it's exactly on these dates, the 14th and 15th, that the main relaxation moment of the month happens, and it would be great if you don't miss it. Then, with renewed energy, you can get back to pursuing your goals. Well, okay, taking a break is always good, but here it turns out the 14th and 15th fall on Monday and Tuesday. What kind of break is that? But if you're planning some time off for yourself, then basically the middle of the month is a good time to take a vacation or something like that. Another aspect is related to your love life and personal relationships. And here, around the 14th and 15th, something very important may come up in your emotional sphere, connected to your loved ones. So try to pay attention, because there might be conversations about children, about having children, talks about getting closer, visiting your loved ones, or going somewhere together as a family. And these days are dedicated to bringing a new source of emotions from your loved ones into your life. So try to focus not on work during these days, but rather on who is close to you and how you would like to organize your family life. Because here there is a huge influence from July 14th to 15th, from Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, which symbolizes emotional happiness and harmony for the coming year. And here it starts its programs and suggests things like, come on kids, move in with me, or let's rent a summer house together and relax during the summer. In other words, there's this idea that Jupiter brings happiness from having loved ones around me. But it brings this as a whole year-long project that will keep developing and developing, and eventually it will turn into a situation where our big family has a space where we can relax together, support each other, and love one another. That's why this could be something much more significant than just a one-time trip or journey, or simply doing something together with your family. It could be that we come up with and start something together. To dream, to love. There's a movie called Love, Dream, I can't remember the exact name, Meditate. This is exactly what this segment is about. For those who are into astrology, I'll clarify that the moon will most likely be passing here, just like the North Node, around the 12th house. This is a time for calm and quiet. The sun in the 4th house works really well here. This is about making some key decisions related to home, family, your loved one, basically, creating that sense of home as the main focus during these days. Now, we're going to talk about a very fundamentally important period from the 17th to the 22nd. Here, we have a series of events that, on the one hand, can bring a lot of chaos and, at times, can really throw you into a whirlwind of activity. And for Taurus, honestly, this is a period where life really makes you run around. But the sheer intensity of events will make you remember this time as one of the most action-packed, adventurous, and opportunity-filled periods of the whole summer. So, what do we have here? First of all, your planet is moving through Gemini. Basically, this symbolizes a mood for seeking new experiences, traveling somewhere, reading books, discovering new places, going on guided tours, and filling yourself up with new impressions, knowledge, emotions, and so on. But here, approximately around July 21st, your Venus gets caught in a loop between the node of the past and the node of the future. Usually, this loop feels like, I'm pulled in several directions, juggling multiple projects, I need to be here and there. And honestly, I'm versatile and charming, and please sign me up for that appointment over there too. I want to, become president or something. And this is that feeling of wanting everything at once, and at times, feeling scattered all over the place. But in the end, honestly, I expect that you'll manage to do everything, everywhere, all at once. But at some point, you'll feel like your life has just turned into a tornado in a matter of days.